Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to show you how to set up your gear mesh. And this is going to be the gear mesh from your Pinion gear right here to your Spur gear. Now, a lot of kits, of the more modern kits, this is an older kit, have their Spur gear and basically their whole transmission and motor package centered in the chassis. This is an older dirt setup, so everything is still located in the rear, although there are still many two-wheel drive vehicles set up this way with the motor and everything in the rear. And even if it's in the center of the chassis, it's still pretty much the same thing. You have a Pinion gear and you have a Spur gear, and then you have your transmission in here, and then it goes to your differential, and then it goes to the tires, and that's just a basic two-wheel drive setup. So what we're trying to accomplish here is setting up I guess you would say the mesh or the connection between this gear and this gear. And really what you want to do is get these two as close together as possible and then back off just a smidge. I mean, like not even a millimeter of a gap do you want. It's just about as small as you can pull it back. So you see, the thing is that this setup allows you to run multiple pinion sizes, so you can go up in a tooth or down. So what it does is you loosen up these two screws on this setup, and it allows you to move the pinion in and out. And if you notice, there's no grease or oil or anything. This works simply because we have a steel or aluminum or essentially a metal pinion gear running with what I believe is a nylon or essentially a plastic Spur gear. I believe it's nylon. I'm not 100% sure about that. Nylon is a pretty tough plastic. So pretty much what we're going to do here is we're going to get these two screws and we're going to loosen them just a little bit, just so the motor will move. Okay, that's loose, and that one's loose. And now, if you see, I can move the motor back and forth. So what I'm going to do now is, I can get this all on camera well, I'm pretty much going to push the motor in as much as I can to that Spur gear. And then, well, what I usually do, actually what I would do is tighten these up just a little bit, just so they just start grabbing. I mean, as soon as it starts grabbing. Actually, that's too tight. A little, just, okay. So now it's basically in there. I really have to force it to move it, but I can move it still. See, it will move, but it doesn't want to move easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push that gear. You know what? Let's make this easier on ourselves. I'm going to push this gear in there as far as I can. Just like that, as far as it'll go. And now I'm going to pull this Pinion gear, the motor, which is attached, out just the tiniest of little bit. So it's all the way in there, and I just pull it out just a hair. Now I'm going to tighten them up all the way. And I'm going to see if it works out. Tighten, tighten. Now what I'm going to do to test this is I get my thumb and I jam it somewhere in between that. Right now it's going to be jammed in between this screw head and the gear, and that makes it so I can't really move this pinion anymore. It's just jammed, it's binded, it's like kind of caulked or chalked in there, so this won't really move. And now I'm going to take the Spur gear and I'm just going to rattle it like this. And that's a little tight. So what you want to hear is a little bit of rattling. Essentially you want this pinion to not move, and then you want the spur gear to just shift back and forth ever so slightly. So that's still a little too tight in my opinion. So I'm going to do the same thing again, loosen this all up. And this just takes practice. You just got to sit here and play with it. And I know that there's paper methods, and then there's something where you run the car and everything, and you see where it just naturally falls. But I think really the best way to do all of this is just to practice getting this right where it should be. So I'm going to push that all the way in and then pull out just a tiny bit. Nope, that's too much. I think that might be it right there. Tighten. And this is probably going to take you quite a few times in the beginning. It used to take me like sometimes 10 minutes to get it right. Okay, so I'm going to lock this pinion gear down or hold it with my fingers, whatever you got to do. Can you hear that? That's what you want. And those gears are almost fully, I could just barely see a hole. I don't know if you can see that, but you could just barely see a gap in between those gears, and that's really what you want. Now, because this gear is nylon here, it's not perfectly true, so to speak. So what you want to do is you want to kind of go around it, check for that click, click. So you can hear those gears rocking, or the teeth rocking on one another. And it's easier if you have the car off the ground. And you want to make sure that it's about as close as it can be. You don't want the tips just touching each other. So you can see that's like pretty much fully, that's about fully engaged. And yet there is still a little bit of wiggle room there if I hold that. And I do it mostly by sound. Now I'm just going to tighten it down a lot. That one's tightened a lot. That one's really tight. That one's really tight. And I check it one more time. Yep, and they should be very much engaged. So about as deep as you can get them, but there should still be some wiggle room. And clicking. If you don't hear any clicking, then they're too close. And that's pretty much how you do it. All right, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Bye.